Good afternoon. We begin here at 5 o'clock with a big development surrounding coronavirus and mask mandates. The Justice Department announced this afternoon it is appealing the ruling that struck down the federal mandate for masking on public transportation.
Shortly after a federal judge in Florida made that decision on Monday, masks became optional at trains, on buses, planes, and at airports. And now the CDC has asked the Justice Department to appeal, saying in a statement today, wearing masks on public transportation is still necessary for public health. And mixed messages from the White House, by the way, as the president said yesterday, it should be an individual choice. We'll keep an eye on the updates here. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. This news comes as COVID cases are rising in both Oregon and Washington, but health experts say that's not a surprise. The latest numbers show 872 new cases in Oregon. Here's a look at the Oregon Health Authority's public dashboard. That orange graph displays daily cases since early March, and you can see a slight uptick starting in mid-April.
Galen Etlin joins us now. And Galen, you have heard from experts about the story behind these numbers and why we should not be alarmed here.
Yes, David, Laurel, there are a few reasons here. Both states presented today about where we're at with the virus right now and where we're headed.
Washington and Oregon share more than a border. What happens in one state often reflects in the other, and Wednesday's COVID-19 update was no exception.
Fortunately, we're not done with COVID-19 yet, but we are closer to normality than ever.
That was from Oregon Health Authority. And from the Washington Department of Health,
transition away from the initial pandemic response to learning to live with COVID.
Both states said cases are trending up as people gather again and ditch the masks. But hospitalizations are not increasing drastically.
It means that we have good capacity in our healthcare system.
Experts credit high immunity, above 80%, with most people vaccinated with at least one dose.
They do wear off over time.
Because of that, breakthrough cases are rising, and health officials encouraged people to get boosted.
If it's been more than 4 months, it's time to consider getting an additional dose.
Wastewater testing shows the virus is circulating.
I think you can take it as a given that there's a lot of COVID-19 out there. So if you're in a crowded setting, you're going to be exposed to the virus.
The BA2 subvariant is the dominant strain.
90+%.
More contagious, but usually less severe. In Oregon, the average weekly reported case numbers have risen to more than 600, up from a couple hundred a few weeks ago. Because of unreported at-home testing, OHA says those numbers could be 5 to 10 times higher. But the good news is those cases are mild. COVID hospitalizations remain below 150 statewide.
The most recent model projects a slight increase in hospitalizations over the next 2 months.
Even with mask mandates ending in most places, medical experts from both states said it's best to keep wearing masks to prevent infection, especially in crowded areas. But as long as hospital numbers remain reasonable, renewed mandates are not on the table.
Right now, there are no plans to do that.
Two states sharing a border and a message.
Now, much of the country is seeing similar trends with those rising case numbers, but without a spike in hospitalizations. And so these experts said taking the right steps to stay immunized will help keep us that way as they watch those numbers and for new variants. Laurel, David.
Thank you, Galen. We are now just hours away from President Biden's visit to Portland. The president is slated to attend a private fundraiser and deliver a speech on infrastructure. Our Mike Benner will be part of our team covering the president's visit. He joins us from PDX with more. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, hey there, Laurel. For people worried that the president's visit will impact traffic in the Portland metro area, don't worry. It appears the president will be staying at or near the airport during his few hours in town. We know the president will be attending a private fundraiser at the Portland Yacht Club on Northeast Marine Drive. That, of course, is just on the north side of the airport. And the president's remarks on infrastructure will be happening on airport grounds. And that's because of the important role airports play in our nation's infrastructure. A deputy press secretary at the White House told me today that, among other things, President Biden will be shining a spotlight on the seismic upgrades to a runway at PDX. The president will be talking about how these sorts of investments help airports run effectively. And what that ultimately does is make sure goods get into our country and the states efficiently. We're told President Biden will also discuss what his team calls historic economic progress in the last year and a half. Most notably, 8 million jobs created and a 3.6% unemployment rate. Needless to say, the president will have a lot to say in what is his first visit to Oregon since taking office.
He's happy to be out there talking directly with the people of Oregon and directly with the American people about the impact of what's happening here in Washington.
He's going to try to paint a rosy picture that his infrastructure bill is the cure-all, the save-all, the end-all, be-all to all of the crises and the problems that Oregon residents are dealing with, but it's not.
Yeah, Paris Denard, who you just heard from there, believes the president should be talking about inflation and public safety. At the end of the day, not a big surprise, the RNC is expressing concerns about the president's visit to the Northwest. And we say Northwest because after stopping here in Portland, President Biden will head to Seattle, where he plans to discuss reducing the cost of prescription drugs. David.
Mike Benner at PDX, and special coverage all day tomorrow on air and online at KGW.com. Thank you, Mike. The state is wrapping up its case in the murder trial of romance novelist Nancy Crampton Brophy. She is accused of killing her husband Daniel in a kitchen where he taught at the Oregon Culinary Institute. Let's bring in Brian Clerkley now at the Multnomah County Courthouse. Brian, good to see you. Bring us up to speed here.
Hey, David. Well, the prosecution is expected to rest its case tomorrow. They just finished up for the day, so they'll start at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And today they called up a couple more witnesses who were family friends of the Brophies, and things got emotional as one witness spoke about the day Dan Brophy died.
Well, I gave her a hug and told her how sorry I was, and I was really sad. Obviously, I'm sorry.
Emotional testimony this morning from a friend of the Brophy family. The trial of Nancy Crampton Brophy continues with the state calling up more witnesses. The couple's hairstylist, Michelle Revenue, says she read about a shooting at the Oregon Culinary Institute in the Sunday paper. Then she called Nancy to find out what happened. Then Nancy broke the news to her.
Asked what happened. And I knew he had been there to teach a class. And I said, was somebody there, when he got there? Was it open or whatnot? And she had said that, the garage door was open and that the janitor, who usually works Saturdays, had taken that day off, so he wasn't there.
Another witness and family friend of the Brophies, Tanya Medlin, says she worked with Dan Brophy the Friday night before his death. She says she was on the Oregon coast the morning she found out Dan had died. She visited with Nancy the day of the murder and asked her bluntly what happened.
Oh, I asked her. My exact words were, "Where the hell were you when this was happening?" Like, I literally said it like that in front of everybody. Because I was just, my God, I still can't believe it.
The state provides a picture of Nancy Crampton Brophy as a woman who lied to police about where she was the morning her husband died. And she stood to gain a significant amount of money from her husband's death. The defense says the state is presenting a circumstantial case while avoiding the fact that the Brophies were deeply in love and she would not have killed her husband. And then one witness went on to say that she asked Nancy Crampton Brophy several times about the investigation with police, but she never got any updates from Nancy about information on who killed her husband. David, Laurel.
Thank you, Bryant. The FBI is putting up $15,000 to help solve a Portland homicide that's nearly a year and a half old. Tim Gordon's here now. And Tim, this is such a sad case, an innocent teenager shot and killed.
That really is sad, Laurel. The death of the teenager. His good friend was critically injured in that shooting but survived. It happened on New Year's Eve 2020. These are pictures of Jamir Malik Brown. He was 18 years old and had a promising future when he died from gunshot wounds. And we spoke to his mother and aunt last June, and obviously they were devastated and looking for answers. Portland police have been looking for answers too, but so far have found few leads. Jamir and his friend were just sitting in a car near Woodlawn Park in Northeast Portland watching YouTube videos when they were shot. Both were good kids. Jamir had never been in trouble and was not into guns or gangs. So who did it? Somebody knows. And the FBI is putting $15,000 toward getting someone to come forward.
And we're going to offer this money out there. We're going to plead with people, look, if you have information, call law enforcement, call Crime Stoppers of Oregon, who we've partnered with in this entire endeavor.
And just like his life just got taken away, and And he's not here anymore, and it's very hard. Every day I wake up like he's not here. Very, very hard.
So hard, and that was Jameer's mom, Angela, today when we talked to her. Take a good look at the FBI flyer here, just released this afternoon. Adding $15,000 brings the reward total in this case up to close to $25,000. Hopefully it entices someone to have the courage to come forward. We have more information about how you can do that at KGW.com. David.
Tim Gordon reporting. Tim, thank you for that. Supporters who want to bring a commuter ferry to Portland continue to push for their vision despite significant setbacks. Today, organizers of the nonprofit Friends of the Frog Ferry spoke by City Hall. They're aiming to convince commissioners to get behind the project.
Ferries are best practice, they're proven, and they're out there across our country. So this isn't new, this isn't cutting edge, this is about catching up, really. And for a river city, we know that ferries are incredibly cost efficient.
But here's the thing. Last week, commissioners turned down a $225,000 bailout request. The vote came after TriMet accused the nonprofit of inappropriate spending and billing, which Frog Ferry denied.